2-acre park.
People don't realize LA is now the densest metropolitan area in the country, denser than the New York metropolitan area in the last census. So reimagining and transforming this river is critical to everything we do.
The improvements go hand in hand with the city's $1 billion plan to restore parts of the river, to turn what's mostly concrete back to its natural beauty, preserving the environment while promoting camping and other recreational activities. At Marsh Park in the Elysian Valley, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
Crews also plan to install 13 fitness stations and a Spanish-style picnic pavilion for special events. In more LA River news, up the river to Winnetka in the San Fernando Valley, where bikers who enjoy riding along the river just got an extra 2 miles of additional roadway. Yana Kay reports.
Joe Linton and his family are avid bikers, and because they live in Koreatown, finding a place to bike can be tough. So they've decided to try out the new 2-mile bikeway in the San Fernando Valley.
I'm a longtime bicyclist and bike advocate and river advocate in Los Angeles, and I'm excited about this. And I think it's really, it connects the valley to the rest of Los Angeles. It brings people together.
After 2 years of construction, city officials and community members cut the ribbon on the third and final phase of the LA River Bikeway in Winnetka. The new segment runs along the southern portion of the LA River and connects bikers to Mason Avenue.
This is an important amenity for the community and an asset for the entire West Valley and city.
Officials say the bikeway not only provides much-needed open space in the area, but will also encourage active lifestyles.
It's really nice. They did a fantastic job. It looks beautiful.
Some bikeway features include drought-tolerant vegetation, metal railings, solar lighting, and rest areas.
Each section that we add is exciting for the community along the river, but for all of us who use and recreate along this incredible parkway.
The new bikeway will be open 24/7 thanks to LED lighting, and officials say it is one step closer to building a pathway that connects the LA River to all of Los Angeles. I'm Yana Kay for LA This Week.
The bikeway was primarily funded through Metro and Proposition 50. A new survey could make walking the streets a little safer for residents in MacArthur Park, especially for seniors. Anna Marcos explains.
Nothing like a neighborhood stroll as these MacArthur Park residents take Councilmember Gil Cedillo for a walk around the lake. It's also something of a reconnaissance tour to scope out the cracks in pedestrian safety in the neighborhood.
It can be very dangerous walking.
This pedestrian safety campaign launched a survey of pedestrian hazards for seniors who go to and from the St. Barnabas Senior Services Center, and it found many problems.
I went around the neighborhood, walked through the neighborhood, and I took pictures of all of the sidewalk damage and the street corner damage, and I documented it where it was and the approximate location.
Some of the hazards included buckled sidewalks, dangerous intersections, and dangerous alleyways.
I fell down once a couple of years ago. Now I just walk on the street because the cracks are so bad.
Many times I fall down, but sometimes I broke my hands. Looky here.
Oh, so that's
one more time. Broke my tooth.
No, so sometimes you do fall.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cedillo says he knows the challenges of seniors with limited mobility because his own late wife became paralyzed after a surgery.
She never recovered fully, so she always had a partial paralysis. And so all of a sudden our life became about access, became about how we could get from point A to point B in a manner that was safe.
But Cedillo is determined to make these streets safe and accessible for both seniors and others in the neighborhood. He plans to bring in a road crew to repair some of the most dangerous hot spots. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
The head of the LAPD's counterterrorism unit is asking for the public's help in identifying young people at risk of turning to extremism. As Gil Reyes reports, the concern is fueled by militant groups in Iraq and Syria who may be trying to recruit local young people.
We haven't seen chaos like this in the world in modern times.
LAPD Deputy Chief Michael Downing speaking with community members near UCLA about the growing risk of American Muslims drawn to violent extremism overseas.
It is fertile ground for recruitment, and that I know that people inside the United States have, as you know, have traveled there to fight. It's something we're constantly looking for, and we could use the community's help in helping us to detect that.
Downing says controversial police shootings in Ferguson, Missouri, and in Los Angeles could be used as recruiting tools to lure disenfranchised youth. That's why it's important for police to continue building relations with local communities. Muhammad Khan of King Fahad Mosque says many people from his faith don't trust officers in uniform, so we'd like to see more elected officials take part in the outreach.
The guy with the badge usually represents an extortionist from back home. I think the mayor is very focused on economics and other areas, but I'd like to see him more involved in this.
Deputy Chief Downing is concerned about the growth of militant groups like the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, and the very real threat of militants with American passports returning home from training to carry out violence.
They have the funds, they have a large essential army, they have the equipment, they have the tactics and training.
But Los Angeles has Muslim Americans working with law enforcement. There's also a new outreach program in the works called the Safe Spaces Initiative. It's said to be the first intervention program for young American Muslims at risk of carrying out violent extremism. Near UCLA, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
The Safe Spaces Initiative is headed by the Muslim Public Affairs Council. Its goal is to create a safe space in local mosques where people can freely discuss sensitive political topics and where leaders can steer those who may be headed towards extremism back on the right path. The LAPD Forensics Crime Lab is a leader throughout the country in crime scene investigations, and now a rigorous test helps prove this crime lab is tops in its field. Anna Marcos reports.
Inside this lab, you will find a drug device that can analyze any of 200 narcotics, even through glass or plastic.
And you can see it just gives you a very clear result.
There are computer programs that match bullets or shoe prints left at a crime scene with those left at other crimes, and which identify make and manufacturer. There's a camera that captures a crime scene in 3D. It's all in a day's work for the LAPD's Forensics Crime Lab. The work here is so good and so cutting edge that the lab just passed a rigorous test to get accredited with flying colors.
It would be A+.
The crime scene evidence tested here can often be the primary or even the only evidence used in a court case, and the LAPD lab is a leader in forensics across the country.
It's very important that we be accurate and that our results be completely reliable and irrefutable. Every juror wants to believe that when the expert witness takes the stand, they can believe in everything they're telling them in order to make their decision.
Every 5 years, the lab must meet more than 800 criteria in order to get accredited. Everything from employee work habits to how machines are calibrated, like this breathalyzer. The equipment gets checked, but it's the more than 200 employees who make the difference between accuracy and mistakes. They get tested rigorously.
The saying that a chain is no stronger than the weakest link applies. A laboratory will not be accredited if every analyst in the laboratory is not qualified, competent, and doing the work in accordance with their procedures.
The lab recently helped nail down evidence that kept a man behind bars in what police are calling a serial murder case in the Valley. Firearms, bullets, DNA, shoe prints, narcotics. Anything a criminal leaves behind at a crime scene is fair game for lab workers, whose meticulous efforts often help catch the bad guy. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
Even though the full accreditation happens only every 5 years, the lab must also undergo surveillance visits once a year. The giant rubber ducky at the Port of LA has been the talk of the town. As Rasha Goel tells us, the attraction that's been a big draw for visitors has also been good for business.
It's definitely been a hot spot for pictures. If you were down at the Port of LA in the past month, you couldn't help but catch a glimpse of the big yellow rubber duck. It was a temporary art installation created by Dutch artist Florentine Hoffman and was part of the Port of LA's 5-day Tall Ships Festival. Due to an overwhelming response, the duck stay was extended.
Over the 5 days of the Tall Ship Festival, the duck and the tall ships, mostly the duck, brought a total of 277,000 people down to the LA waterfront.
I had to come down here because I'm a fan of ducks. I have ducks in my bathroom. I have ducks all over.
Over the last few weeks, people saw not only one, but two ducks as a baby duck joined in on the fun.
So what's the big fascination? Well, for spectators, it's the world's largest rubber duck, and it's 62 feet tall. And for local businesses, it's helped increase sales here at the Port of Los Angeles.
The tall ships were fine, and but the duck was a big draw.
It's brought more people in my shop.
Officials say they are still reviewing the economic analysis, but are estimating the benefit to be in the millions. Attractions such as this one are a small part of the big plan to help make the LA waterfront a destination for tourists.
Fishing was a big industry down here. Canneries, shipbuilding, all that's gone away. So we realize that on the community side, if we can build the LA waterfront and make it a tourist destination, people will come and spend their dollars.
The big rubber duck may have already said its farewell, but it's left a lasting impact at the Port of Los Angeles.
That old Sesame Street song, Rubber Ducky, you're the one, so that's been going in my head for a long time now.
Bring it back every year. Leave it here. I don't care.
In San Pedro, I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
While the duck days of summer may be over, the 10-foot baby duck has found a new home and will be staying at the port. A city leader wants LA to create a homeless czar position, more trees in one harbor community, and a new mural at a local park. These stories and more in City Beat. Councilman Jose Huizar, whose district includes Skid Row, is asking the city to create a homeless czar position. Currently, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, a joint city-county agency, is largely responsible for homeless services and coordination for the city. But given the size of Los Angeles and the scale of the problem, Huizar's motion calls for the city to establish a full-time position to manage homelessness initiatives across the city. Huizar also currently announced a joint city-county effort that not only cleans the streets of Skid Row every other month, but also provides social services to the homeless. Councilmember Jose Huizar recently honored Kate Del Castillo, a successful Mexican artist, human rights advocate, and LA resident. In addition to her entertainment work, Del Castillo was named ambassador of the Mexican Commission on Human Rights to Combat Human Trafficking in 2009 and launched the Blue Heart campaign to raise awareness and fight against human trafficking in Latin America. Del Castillo has 5 films set for release this year, including The 33, co-starring Antonio Banderas. Councilman Joe Buscaino joined community members to celebrate the planting of 136 trees in San Pedro along Pacific Avenue and 9th, 13th, and 22nd Streets. This latest project continues the tree planting initiative in Buscaino's district that started in Wilmington and Harbor City, where 110 trees were planted. The next stop will be Watts, where more trees will be planted to improve the 15th Council District's tree canopy. The multi-agency effort included the LADWP and the city's Bureau of Sanitation. A new mural at Fox and Laurel Park in San Fernando was recently unveiled. The infusion of art at the green space in Councilman Felipe Fuentes' district came at the urging of the community. The 100-foot mural was designed in collaboration with local residents and is representative of Pacoima, its past, present, and future. Artist Christy Sandoval was selected to render the final design due to her extensive experience as a muralist and her involvement in the San Fernando Valley. The mural was funded by a community development block grant received by the Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust. Art, it's a tie that binds. 2 groups of disabled artists separated by an ocean share their struggles and triumphs through their passion for art. The exhibit is now on display at the Chinese American Museum. A traditional Chinese watercolor of blossoms, a still life of sunflowers, dark tears streaming down the face of a man. These are the works by more than 40 artists in their own right, but who also share the understanding of what it's like to live with a disability.
The Chinese American Museum is extremely happy to be able to present this breakthrough exhibit for everyone. It's definitely a wonderful event to happen not only to the Chinese American Museum, but to the city of Los Angeles.
Trans-Pacific Ties, Bridging Hong Kong and Los Angeles Through Art, is the name of the new exhibit on display at the Chinese American Museum at the El Pueblo Historical Monument. The exhibit, the museum's first international collaboration, brings together the works of artists from Hong Kong and Los Angeles. The museum's international partner for this exhibit is the oldest and largest charitable organization in Hong Kong.
I am honored to be able to bring artists with disabilities from the Tung Wah group of hospitals here to Los Angeles to be able to share their artistic talents with everyone.
The exhibit not only exemplifies the artists' shared passion for art, its mission is to encourage an ongoing dialogue about the shared histories and challenges that unite the community of artists, no matter their origin. 30 pieces of artwork featured are from Hong Kong and 20 from Southern California.
Visitors to Los Angeles will be able to see the great work that we're doing here and in our reaching out in friendship to our brothers and sisters across the Pacific.
The Southern California-based Chinese Parents Association for the Disabled was the other partner in the exhibit. The show runs through December 14th. In this week's list of things to do, a Lobster Fest, a tour of Union Station, and eat, drink, art. The Los Angeles Municipal Art Gallery's famed fundraiser, sponsored by Los Angeles Magazine, will take place on Saturday, September 13th from 7 to 11 p.m., with the VIP reception from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Barnsdall Art Park at 4800 Hollywood Boulevard. The event, called Eat, Drink, Art, a kaleidoscope of the senses, will be catered by celebrity chef Chris Morningstar. There will be live musical performances, and KCRW's DJ Dan Wilcox will also be spinning tunes. In addition to live painting, performance artists, giant puppets, and more, the evening will also feature a silent auction of the works of more than 45 emerging and renowned artists. For more information and to buy tickets, go to barnstall.org/eatdrinkart. The annual Port of Los Angeles Lobster Festival is upon us. This year's 3-day event takes place Friday to Sunday, September 12th, 13th, and 14th. The Lobster Festival features fresh discount Maine lobster meals flown in fresh daily and cooked on the spot. Lobster lovers will enjoy a scenic outdoor park along LA's historic waterfront and shops at Portugal in San Pedro. There's not only lobsters on the menu, but more than a dozen bands are also on the festival's entertainment menu, as well as dancing, street performers, tall ships, and more. Portugal Village is located at the intersection of 6th Street and Harbor Drive in San Pedro. Hours vary each day. Go to lobsterfest.com for details. Metro is offering a special tour of Union Station on the second Sunday of each month as part of its celebration of Union Station's 75th anniversary. The next tour takes place on September 14th from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Led by trained Metro art docents, the tours will cover historic Union Station art, architecture, and spaces not generally open to the public. Tours are free. Reservations are not required. Union Station is located at 800 North Alameda Street. Meet at the information booth inside the Alameda Street entrance. Go to metro.net for details. And that's a look at some upcoming things to do. The Salvadoran community in Los Angeles recently celebrated their roots and heritage with a parade through the streets of Hollywood. Rasha Goel has more.
Patriotic flags, people in authentic dresses, and Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell as the Grand Marshal were all part of the 14th annual Salvadoran Parade held near the intersection of Van Ness and Santa Monica Boulevards in East Hollywood.
It's a tradition to have the parade in this thoroughfare, and this is a corridor that has lots of Salvadorian residents and businesses, and it's a gathering spot for the Salvadorian community.
Happy Salvadorian Independence Day!
The parade is also a celebration of the Central American country's Independence Day, which falls in September.
So far, we have been being like a country when we don't have a war, and we're trying to grow as you know, as a family, and little by little we have been doing that.
The Salvadoran community is the second largest Hispanic group in Los Angeles. I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
That's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellen Chang. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
Emergency operator 271.
The city of Los Angeles receives over 2 million 911 calls every year. Hello, I'm Mayor Eric Garcetti.
I'm Chief Charlie Beck. A significant number of 911 calls are not emergencies.
911 should be used for emergency calls, such as preservation of life, a crime in progress, prevention of a crime, or a public hazard.
If your call is not an emergency, such as a loud party, verbal dispute, public nuisance, or lost or missing property, you can dial 1-877-ASK-LAPD to have the police respond.
Remember, call 1-877-ASK-LAPD for non-emergency calls.
Los Angeles Police Department, what are you reporting?
As car manufacturers introduce a new generation of electric vehicles in the Los Angeles auto market, the LA Department of Water and Power wants our customers to get charged up about driving EVs. So we've introduced the Charge Up LA rebate program to make it more affordable to get your home EV ready.
It's important that Los Angeles lead the way in adopting electric cars because we are the car capital of the world.
Charge Up LA offers a cash rebate of up to $2,000 for out-of-pocket expenses for a new home EV charging station. That's on top of federal and state incentives that are also available. All you have to do to qualify is buy or lease a new electric vehicle and install a new Level 2 240-volt charger at your home or condominium. You'll need to request a separate electric meter or sub-meter from LADWP that tracks only the energy used to charge your EV. When you use the special meter, you will also receive the LADWP's EV charging discount, which takes 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour off your electricity rate when you charge your EV during off-peak hours, at night, and on weekends. To make the switch to EVs easy and smooth, the City of LA has fast-tracked the process for obtaining electrical permitting and service for residential EV chargers. Our goal is to complete the process in about a week for most basic installations. With the special meters, LADWP will track EV charging patterns to determine how much power is being used and where. Then we can plan for energy growth and guard against straining the grid. The special meters also enable customers to securely monitor their EV energy usage.
I've been driving electric cars for 20 years. Running them is cleaner than running a gas car, even if you're charging from the grid. Because the United States grid on average is clean, but the California grid is even cleaner. And then you can go one step farther and you can also buy green power from the DWP, and that makes your car even cleaner, or you can put solar panels on your roof. So you have many options to improve the way that your car runs and make you feel good about what you're doing for the environment. One excellent incentive is the LADWP's rebate program, which offers for the installation and the purchase of your charger up to $2,000 if you fill out this form.
In the not-too-distant future, EVs could be as popular in LA as hybrids are today. To support the growth of EVs, LADWP is working with public agencies and private companies to upgrade and expand charging stations throughout the city. Public charging stations have been newly installed or upgraded at popular destinations like LA City Hall, the airport, the convention center, and the California Science Museum and Exposition Park. When you drive an EV and install a home charger, you're helping to protect the environment. EVs clean the air and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. You are also putting savings in your pocketbook. The electricity cost for charging an EV is like paying less than $1 per gallon at the pump. So get charged up about electric vehicles now.
Charge up, LA.
For more information or an application, visit us online at www.ladwp.com/EV.
Hi, I'm Cindy, and I'm in Little Tokyo, and you're watching Channel 35, Your City, Your Channel.
Good morning. Today is Wednesday, September 10th. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to your Los Angeles City Council meeting. This meeting council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. and all are welcome. Mr. Clerk, I believe we have a quorum. Could you please call the roll?
Blumenfield, Bonham, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Fuentes, Huizar, Koretz, Corian, Labange, Martinez, O'Farrell, Parks, Price, Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
I seem to have missed the joke, Mr. Clerk. I would hope you would share that with your president at the appropriate time.
Certainly, sir.
Okay, why don't we prepare to go through the... first order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Okay, Koretz moves, Mr. Parks seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Englander moves, Blumenfield seconds.
Mr. President, the Department of Building and Safety...
Yes.
The Department of Building and Safety reports that item 1D should be received and filed inasmuch as the lien has been paid in full, and that item 1I should be continued to September 24, pending further consultation with the property owners. Further, there is a request from member to continue item 24 to October 1st.
So without objection, that will be the order. That brings us where on our agenda?
Mr. President, that brings us to items 1 through 5. They're items noticed for public hearing.
Do we have cards?
No, sir, we do not.
Specials members? Specials members? I do not see any members, but I hear that we may have a card. So why don't we go on to the next section? Then we'll come back to 1 through 5. Mr. Clerk, let's move on.
Very good, sir. That brings us to items 6 through 28. They're items for which public hearings have been held. Items 6, 22, and 28 should be held on the desk until such time as the committee reports have been circulated.
Okay, so we'll do that. Members, any specials on these items? Mr. Buscaino.
Item 17, please, if you can hold that.
We'll hold 17 for Mr. Buscaino. Let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open.
Mr. President?
Mr. Englander.
I'm sorry. Item 25 special for Councilmember Huizar, please.
Okay, we'll hold 25. Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item 6 special, please.
6 for Mr. O'Farrell. Mr. Buscaino. You only get one. You only get one.
Can I get item 18 for now? We may be able to push that through, but I just questioned for our staff.
let's hold that as well. So let's prepare to vote. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Let's move on, Mr. Clerk.
Very good, sir. That brings us to items 29 through 37. There are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, it's my understanding that item 36...
2 weeks, Mr. President.
Mr. Labange requests that it be held for 2 weeks. So that would bring us to what date?
September 24, sir.
Okay, so be it. So these, without objection, Mr. Clerk, these items are now before us. Do we have cards?
Yes, sir, we do. We have cards on 29 and 34. 29 and 34,
Hold
sir.
those items and let's prepare to vote on the remaining.
Mr. President,
I'm told I need to hold 35.
Yes, sir.
Let's vote on the rest. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That brings us where?
Mr. President, that brings us to items 38 through 41. There are items scheduled for closed session. Would you like to hold them on the desk?
I think I will hold them for a few moments until the chair arrives. So that brings us where on today's agenda?
That brings us to item 42, sir. It's on the continuation agenda, and it's an item for which a public hearing has been held.
Mr. Labange?
Members, this is just an application. And I was not here yesterday. Thank you very much. And all I ask that the application go forward, let the Historic Preservation Office of the City Planning look at it, and then do the process. That's all. It's requested by the community of Los Feliz, and the Los Feliz community is represented here, and Mr. Bernstein is here, and you'll determine whether it's worthy or not Mr. Bernstein, and that's all we ask.
Okay, so let's prepare. Mr. Buscaino?
I had a question on this, Mr. Labange. This property, has it been vetted through the commission, the historical
No, we
commission?
wanted to. Let it go. And Mr. Bernstein, quickly, Mr. Bernstein, you're on the clock, as they say. Just give us what the process. This is the process. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Ken Bernstein with the Department of City Planning and Office of Historic Resources. The motion, the Labange motion, is to initiate the consideration of this property as a historic cultural monument. If it is approved by council, it will be scheduled for consideration by the Cultural Heritage Commission, which will tour the property and then bring a recommendation back to the council.
Still needs to be vetted through the commission.
Correct.
All right. And Mr. Labange is good with it? We're good with it.
Yeah, and it may or may not be. I looked at it yesterday, and I see both sides. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
You're finished, Mr. Labange? Okay, let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, that brings us where, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. President, in regards to our first section of items, they were items 1 through 5. We have cards on items 1 and 2. So items 3 through 5 would be available for your
Okay,
consideration.
so let's hold the 2 items and prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, that brings us where?
Mr. President, that brings us to presentations or items called special.
Mr. Parks, are you ready with your presentation? Then the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, colleagues. We're going to honor a very special person. I'd ask Mr. Kent Shocknick to come up at this time, and his family and friends. Colleagues, today and community, we're honoring Mr. Shocknick for his retirement that's coming up September 26, 2014. After 36 years in the broadcasting industry. Kent is believed to have anchored more hours of television news than anyone else in Los Angeles. He was LA's first and longest running morning anchor. He also anchored LA Television's first ever live webcast. In addition, he is the first Los Angeles TV reporter to write a daily blog. We won't hold that against you. On January 10, 2014, the City of Los Angeles officially proclaimed Kent Shocknick Day in honor of his decades of dedicated service. On radio, he has hosted the nationally syndicated weekly program Premier Magazine Live, plus the daily essay, Just a Minute with Kent Shocknick, and on CBS all-news station KNX 1070 AM. He has been a longtime contributing editor at Road and Track magazine and can be seen in dozens of feature film and TV roles as a newscaster. He's been certainly cast properly. He has met with presidents, astronauts, Hollywood superstars. He's been reported from war zones, royal palaces, third world villages, underwater, and swimming with sharks. He's named one of LA's top 3 anchors by LA Confidential magazine. He's anchored historic events as they unfolded, taking Southern California viewers live through presidential inaugurations, the very first minute of World Trade Center and the Pentagon attacks, the loss of the space shuttles Columbia and Challenger, and the beginning and end of the Gulf War I and the war in Iraq as they happened. He is known for his marathon anchoring and reporting on such events as California ruinous wildfires, earthquake storms, and high-speed chases. He covered the O.J. Simpson murder trial, the Los Angeles Democratic Convention, the '84 Olympic daily from start to finish. He also covered the revenge-killing manhunt of ex-LAPD officer Christopher Dorner, the Michael Jackson Memorial, the deadly North Hollywood bank shootout, the LA riot in their entirety. He led TV watchers nearly every step of the day. Long Space Shuttle Discovery retirement move to Exposition Park. He joined CBS in 2001 after starting morning news in Los Angeles as the original anchor of the region's first morning newscast. Today in Los Angeles, his experience and Southern California savvy has earned him 8 Grammys, more than a dozen, 8 Emmys, and more than a dozen Emmy nominations. He has won 2 Los Angeles Press Club awards, a Golden Mike Award for the Best Daytime Newscast, the Associated Press Award for the Best Radio Feature, and the William Randolph Hearst Foundation Award for Investigative Reporting. His distinguished alumnus of graduated Phi Beta Kappa and Magna Cum Laude and a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism for the University of Southern California. He also has taught upper-level reporting courses at his alma mater. He is California native, is active in the community. He has acted as an advisor to the national nonprofit organization Reading Allies, formerly Recording for the Blind and the Dyslexic. He volunteers in support of the Los Angeles Mission, efforts to feed the region's underprivileged. So today, on behalf of the City of Los Angeles, it's a great pleasure to recognize him for his loyal and dedicated service to the field of broadcasting. His contributions, community, are truly valuable and is long cherished by many, and the best wishes in his retirement. But most importantly, I want to thank him personally for his help in developing my son as a TV writer in his prior career. And so I just want to say thank you personally for that, and his mother is very appreciative of that also. So on behalf of the City of Los Angeles, we'd like to honor Mr. Kent Schocknick for his 30-plus years of service. Come on over. Come on, step up close.
Betsy, shoot it from the other side. Channel 2 wants to get it too.
Why don't you come up and introduce all of your friends? Come on.
Thank you, Councilman Parks, very much. I wish I had a Grammy, but anyone who has ever heard me sing knows that that's not likely. My sincere thanks to Councilman Parks, the council, the councilman's chief of staff, Bernard Parks Jr., who was the very first person to welcome me to CBS 2 when I started all those years ago, and is living proof now that there is life after TV news, which I am looking forward to testing out firsthand. After all of these years of broadcasting to Southern California and showing people what's going on, much of it under the very wise guidance of the most respected news director in the nation, Scott Diener, I look forward now to watching news instead of broadcasting it with all of my friends who have been kind enough to come here today, and most of all, my very favorite TV watching buddy and partner, my wife of 22 years, Karen, third generation Angelino, and my sincere thanks to everyone who keeps this wonderful city running and the people who make it the best city in the world in which to work and which to live. My very, very humble thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
Mr. Schocknick. Mr. Parks, thank you for bringing in Mr. Schocknick and Karen. The thing I stand now is it's important to think of your fourth quarter, your post. Tom Bradley didn't get his fourth quarter. John Farrar didn't get his fourth quarter. You're going to get a fourth quarter. And that's a good thing to do. So you'll develop other skills and talents and loves of life to really enjoy it. You've been committed to bringing and informing the people of Los Angeles what is going on. And closely there, and you went all the way from They're in Alameda and Burbank all the way over to Sunset Boulevard, then back out to the Valley. So you're Valley guys, straight 134 all the way. I want to thank you for all your friendship that I've enjoyed, and my wife Bridget, but also your commitment to the city. I think we all have to know, and the Fourth Estate does have a real important role, as it does report the news, but to be positive about our city, about our parks, about our libraries, about our schools, to give encouragement, and you've always have, Ken. I thank you, and I stand to thank you and your fabulous news director, who always does the job of getting people, and your great camera people who do such a great job catching the thing. Let's give them all a hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Parks, back to you.
We're going to go in the back and take some photos. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, why don't we go to item 6 at this point? It's my understanding that the reports have been circulated, so if we could get Michael, you want to? And I will defer to Mitch O'Farrell. We're at item 6. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of days ago, in my committee, Arts, Parks, Health, Aging, and the River, Mike Schull had a bit of a coronation. But it wasn't without a really great conversation as we confirmed him for the next permanent general manager of Recreation and Parks. So it gives me great honor to introduce someone that I've worked with for a long, long time now when I was on staff, someone who's been with the City of Los Angeles since 1991, Recreation and Parks since 2005, I believe, and who is here with his incredibly talented support system, the men and women of the Recreation and Parks Department, who many of us have had the pleasure of working with all these years. They are a wonderful department that improves the quality of life and makes this city more livable. And Mike Schull has played a direct role in that, certainly in the 13th District and all of the other council districts in the city of LA. And Mike brings just an incredible background and experience to this job. Baptism by fire, life in the trenches, thriving through the Great Recession with extremely limited resources, which we still exist with to this day. And I've always loved Mike's very direct and real approach to problem solving, telling it like it is, but always having a spot for optimism and really thinking outside that proverbial box, which we really need in a general manager. So I want to commend Mike for his leadership, his dedication to work, his dedication to solving problems, and his dedication to this great city of Los Angeles and our youth, our children, which is our main mission in our parks across the city, to serve our youth. So without further ado, Mike Schull.
Thank you, Councilmember. It's it's with great joy and pride that I take on this assignment. Mentioning the staff that's here is Rec and Parks is. I've got 24 and a half years here in the city, and it is a passion job that you must have to work here. It is a 24/7 job. It is. And all these folks behind me are what makes the ship run, and they are all to be commended. And I'm just it's my pleasure and honor to represent them. And I do want to thank and I do want to mention the previous general manager, John Kirk Muckery, who spent many years in this department and is really responsible for, along with Regina Adams, that's here today. To thank you. They spent, and I watched for my years in the department, watch and participate in how they kept the ship afloat, and how we kept all the parks open, and how we kept our programming going, and how we kept maintenance going through all those years, tough years. But but we're not still without many challenges. And I've been working with many of you in my interim time to try to bring those challenges to light and to try to problem solve with each and every one of you, because they're immense. The problems are immense, and I am with great optimism in this department, and I do feel that we're on our way back. And I think we've got some good ideas in working with each of you. I've never sat, this is one of the best sitting councils that I've ever had a chance to work with, along with the mayor. I think the city is probably in the best shape it's been in its leadership in a long, long time, and I'm just honored to work with each and every one of you. I really want to focus on two really simple concepts going forward, and that's clean and safe parks. If we can just rally around those two items, and with that, you'll be hearing more about that when we get into our budget deliberations and when we start talking about. But I honestly think we need to take a strong look at our ranger program, and I think we need to take a strong look at our maintenance program, as well as looking at our programs and to make sure that they're equitably distributed throughout the system, and that we're still able to offer programs to these areas of the city that are of the absolute highest need. Rec and parks can make a substantial difference in the outlook of the city, and they are a direct line with the community, and the things that we do in these parks has a lot to do with crime, has a lot to do with jobs, has a lot to do with the economy of this city. And I want to focus on that, particularly in those areas of lower income. We have a lot of work to do on marketing and getting more public-private partnerships in the parks. I know we've talked about that for many years. We're going to continue to strive to do that. I mean, it has been a challenge for us to get that, but we really need more corporate leadership in the city to help, some of our city departments. And I think Recreation and Parks is primed to do that. And I would invite any corporate sponsor to come and talk to us about how they might do that. I think Park Rangers is something that corporate sponsorship could rally around. I think that is something that's tangible. It's something you can see. It's something you can touch. And I was just meeting all morning this morning with Vicki Israel, who heads our partnership division, and I think Park Rangers are a way that we can put a plan together that we probably could get sponsorships around. And what a difference that would make in the social issues with homeless issues in our parks, as well as the issues surrounding that engagement with the community and the liaison to LAPD. I don't want to create a police force. LAPDs, that's their job, but we do need people in the parks, boots on the ground, to interact with the public, and to be able to do those interpretive and social programs that only a park ranger can do. So I'll be, obviously talking a lot more with you about that, and then looking at how we can make our parks cleaner, because that's the perception that all the public has about when they leave our parks, whether the restroom is clean or not clean. And over the years, we've cut back a lot on that. So we've got an idea that we're going to be proposing in the budget of how we can restore some of those services and get our parks cleaner. So I think with those two things, I think everything else can rally around that. And I think you can, we begin to see more families in some of these parks. I mean, I've enjoyed working with Councilmember Price in South Park and Councilman Cedillo in MacArthur Park, and many of you others in all the parks, but those two particular parks are heavily hit, and we need to have more focus on those. Venice Beach with Councilman Bonin. Those are parks that can benefit from all these things, and so I'm really enthusiastic about it. The staff everybody is behind this, and I think we can make a difference. And I think it doesn't need to take 10 years. I think we can do it sooner than later. I don't think we're building a rocket ship here. We're running a parks department, and these things can happen very quickly.
Great. Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. And quite frankly, colleagues, Mr. Schul, along with our previous general manager, have made all of us look good. In tight budget times, they worked with us to make those improvements, to find new funding for new parks. And I want to thank you, Mr. Schul, for the work you did in our district to make Ascot Hills one of the great natural parks in the city of LA. We found funding for York Park by applying for some state funding, found some funding for the First and Broadway Park, and some improvements in Hollenbeck. And at the end of the day, when you look at what makes the quality of life matter for the city of Los Angeles, it's our parks, our libraries, public spaces where people depend on them to be safe and clean. And I think I'm very happy to hear those are the things you're focusing on. Some of the parts of the city where we have some of our oldest infrastructure presents great challenges. And I'm excited to see you there as general manager, because sometimes, as you mentioned, the money is not always there. But I've seen you be very innovative and creative in the past to make things happen. You are a yes person that starts with yes unless there's an absolute no, instead of starting with no and we try to get people to yes. So I think you have the right approach, down to earth. We look forward to working with you, and thank you for serving this great city of Los Angeles.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Weezer, you're absolutely right. What we see before us, colleagues, is someone who can get to yes. And I've had the privilege of working with Mike and his team over the course of the last 2 years of building pocket parks throughout my district. And I've seen firsthand that Mr. Scholl has been ever present in the community, the Park Advisory Board meetings, and these meetings can get heated at times because of the passion that people have in our city of improving our park space. And you just handled yourself well with professionalism, with humility, and you're just a good guy. And we love you. We want the best for you. We want the best for this department that I was introduced to the city right out of high school as a rec assistant, and knowing the importance of valuing our park space across the city. And I just want to thank you. I'm so proud of you. Thank Mayor Garcetti for putting forward an amazing individual who serves our city and will do so even more so as the general manager of our Department of Recreation and Parks. I'm proud of you, Mike. I've always said, as Chair of Public Works, I want to name a street after you, but we'll get there one of these days. So congratulations to you and your family, and thank your wife and boys for allowing you to serve at this level. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Labange.
First, I'd like to ask the Recreation and Park staff to stand up and be recognized by the council. That's a team that works so hard. Thank you for it. And the other day, I made a statement about what a park meant to me, and I learned to swim at the Grith Park pool. And I still remember when the side stroke, you take the fruit from the tree and put it in the basket. And all that you got as a child in Los Angeles at the parks, and you spend time at the parks. That's a very important component. Yesterday I was talking to a reporter, and they want to buy a house in a neighborhood, I think in your neighborhood, Mr. Krikorian, and they want to be close to a park because they have young children. You know, people have that value. Los Angeles in 1930, 2 years after this building was built, was 90% single-family dwelling. Most people had a front yard and a backyard, no matter where they lived or who they were. They had a front yard and a backyard. And they're never the great champions for the parks. But in the movements over the years, a lot of it was to stop development and have natural zones there. I'm for all that stuff, as long as we have hiking trails for all people to get to. But as it's progressed now, it's a real big component. We need to have a joint use committee between LA Unified and the Community College District, because it's all the public's money and it's all the public spaces. So that's a real key thing that we should work forth on. Also, I want to work out with the Department of Water and Power and Recreation and Parks, because often Recreation and Parks is the saddle for which they ride through on their needs to connect the city through power or water, but to see what, if it was Edison coming through, they'd be paying a franchise fee. So just to make sure, they do a lot of good for us. I love DWP and what they do, but there should be some real things that look to see. We've had that impact in Griffith Park for the river supply conduit, which is important to the whole city, but at the same time, we want to work sure some of those issues out, some of those needs. The park rangers. If we build a building, we put 12 people in the building, from the park director, like Serena Fisk, who did such a great job at Pan Pacific, all the way down to the junior directors. If it's open space, there's nobody. But there needs to be representatives, and those are the rangers. And I know it was the interest of the last mayor to get to 10,000, and when they shifted general services over to the police department, that gave them the vehicle to get to 10,000, which was a number everybody was wanting to get to. But at the same time, it left a little vacancy at Rec and Parks. We've got to get that back for you out there. Parks are so important. If you look at the density of the city, some of the most density places do not have, like the Wilshire area, the parks, the neighborhood parks that are necessary there that are used. So, Michael, I'm very happy. We do have Prop A, which is a county measure, which I hope we all support. It's Did you have it in committee yesterday? We got to have it soon because the election's in November, and ask the people. I remember the first proposition. Mr. Ferraro put it up. We were standing up at the observatory, and the county wasn't going to add the zoo and add some other city facilities. We got that in. We make sure we get our fair share because we work with the county on that. So Prop A2, which is a continuation of which has been the tool that you've been the great architect of to provide for the communities. So I thank you. Last night, upon arrival to Los Angeles, I went into Griffith Park, and I saw Louis Alvarado, the honorary mayor. All the hikers had left, and I hiked alone on a trail on the hip of the park above the old zoo, and I felt so good that I live in this city and have this opportunity. And this morning, as I hiked up and watered Dante's View, Joe Salisis, I looked to the east and I saw the sun rise. This is where it happens, in the parks of Los Angeles. Mike Scholl, I thank you. I'm proud of you and your family and your team. Good work.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman LaBonge.
Mr. Bloomingfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to tell you I'm thrilled to join my colleagues in congratulating you. I don't have a question, but I just wanted to really tell you how I've really enjoyed working with you this last year, getting to know you. But I think you cut yourself short in your analogy. You talked about this isn't rocket science doing parks, and I get that. But in some ways, it's a lot more complicated than that. NASA is fully funded when they build a rocket. You've got to cobble together funding from all sorts of places to make parks work. And NASA, they have a clear mission. They get that thing to the moon. You've got multiple missions going on. Yes, the clean and green, but how do you serve the people and how do you serve the city? And one of the things that you've done really well is you've been able to multitask, and you've worked with me in my office on permeable materials, on water conservation, on pocket parks, and in particular how we transform the fire station 84, and even on bringing Wi-Fi to the parks. You've thought creatively looking at the big picture of how do we improve quality of life for Angelinos via the park system. And that's why I think you're really well suited for this job. You're very modest in your analogy and in your demeanor, but you do great things, and we really appreciate it. And I look forward to working with you for many years on this, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Bonin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike, congratulations. This is an exceptional pick. I'm stoked that you're going to be fully at the helm permanently. I've worked with you a lot over the years, and I would echo but slightly amend what some of my colleagues said about you being a person who gets to yes, because I think what's actually unique about you is that you start from yes, and your talent is finding ways to get other people to yes with you, and I think that's very important. The thing that strikes me about you is you're both patient and impatient. You are remarkably patient and calm with sometimes overly demanding elected officials and sometimes angry and frustrated constituents. But you are remarkably impatient with no and bureaucratic delays and problems that get in the way of progress. And I really admire that about you. I couldn't help but notice that when you said we still have some challenges ahead, you looked at me. I was thinking the same thing, and then you referred to Venice. I think you and I agree that Venice is a damaged and scuffed and scarred jewel of the city and of our park system. And I want to do over the next 10 years with you at Venice Beach the kind of change that Mayor Garcetti and now Mitch O'Farrell have done in Hollywood, or that Joe has done at the Port, or that Jose has done such a remarkable job on at Broadway downtown. So I'm looking forward to working with you. We're going to do good things together.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Corrett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I kind of like the NASA analogy. If we funded NASA the way we do Rec and Parks, we'd get someone to the moon, and then we'd try to fundraise to see if we could ever get them back. But today is a day for congratulations, I think, for us, because we're really lucky to have you. You're dedicated, you're effective, like all the folks that are here from your department, and like your predecessor, John Muckery. You've done a lot with so much less than I ever thought possible. So I congratulate you and your department for its good work thus far. I think if the department has a flaw, it's probably not ever done as much as it should in terms of corporate outreach and trying to bring in private funds. So I'm glad that you identified that. I'll be happy to work with you on that and try to help hit up some of our corporate partners, and just look forward to working with you. You're a can-do guy and a good guy, and in my district we'd say you're a mensch, which you are, and I look forward to working with you in the years ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
We got Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too, Mike, just want to stand and applaud your appointment and your commitment. You really have demonstrated that you're serious about making a change, and that you appreciate the unique role that parks and recreation play in that process in our city. In the last 13 months, we've had a chance to get to know each other and work together, and you certainly have demonstrated you're a friend, to parks throughout our community, but especially those that have been overlooked, those that have been neglected, those that need to be brought up to speed, if you will. And so we look forward to working with you, Mike. Appreciate your enthusiasm and that of your team, your teammates who share your vision, who share your commitment, and I think who want to collaborate in ways that we haven't before. Pleased that you are not afraid to consider some private sector partnerships in terms of sponsoring, in terms of enhancing, some of the facilities that we have. And again, creating the kinds of relationships that kind of, work outside the box, work outside the usual way. But you always are willing at least to give it a listen and figure out how. And as been mentioned to others, you always find a way to say yes. Figure out how we can say yes, how we can do it, not no we can't, no we don't need to, no we haven't. And so appreciate that spirit. Look forward to working with you to make things happen citywide.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mitch Englander.
Well, I have to deflect a little bit from my colleagues, Mike. I think I'm going to vote no. I think you've lost my vote. And I've told you why. Because I like where you're at. You have been the go-to guy to get things done. And when we met before this, I said, who's the Mike Scholl? And you said, I still am. I said, uh-oh. There's no way you can do everything you've been doing and continue to do everything you've been doing. After listening to all my colleagues, I did not realize that you actually do everything with all the other council districts. I thought you were only assigned to mine. I had no idea. So I really want to know how you've cloned yourself. I didn't know there were more than one. And I couldn't be more proud to vote yes for you. We have been through so many challenges in trying to get things done. Our park facilities, the programs within them, the men and women that work within your department are changing. We sit up here when we have police officers and firefighters in here and saying that's the most important core function is public safety. But I will tell you that crime is at an all-time low for many reasons, and a big part of that is because of what you and your department does. It's the after-school programs, it's the intervention programs, it's working with youth and seniors, it's making sure that those facilities are operational and you've got great morale. It's making sure that those places are maintained and you've got incredible programs and expanded programs. And you continue to do that with less and less every day. And a lot of that has come from your leadership. And I couldn't be more proud, quite frankly, to cast this yes vote. And I'm honored that you will be the permanent general manager for this department. So thank you for everything, and thank your family, because I can only imagine that your vacations and days off and times off and weekends are only spent working and focusing on the city as they always have been. And you've made a tremendous sacrifice to make this a better city. So God bless you.
Thank you. We have a wonderful team. Nothing's done without all of these folks behind me, so thank you for that. Thank you.
Mr. Fuentes.
Very good. Well, Mr. Scholl, I have projects in my district too, so if I don't speak, I'm running the risk here So that goes to all my colleagues. No, seriously though, Mr. Englander, the way that Mr. Schul is so effective is that there's this spirit, this esprit de corps in the department. And it's a tremendous, tremendous department. It's one of those few departments in the city of Los Angeles where you get to meet people who were formerly gardeners or tree trimmers that are now managers or chief rangers. It's one of those departments that is really tremendous because you all live and breathe it and have done so for a long time. So they deserve a big round of applause. But you most certainly do too, because you will be the manager of this department. And I think it's a really, really tremendous and awesome responsibility in every sense of the word. As I think about what it is that you're charged to do, you are the architect, the custodian, the real estate manager of one of the most valued real estate portfolios in the city of Los Angeles. There's no other designation other than open space that has a higher land value. So much so that in our code, we can't do anything with it other than to improve it. And so to me, with all due respect to General Services, you have the most valuable portfolio in all of the city of Los Angeles, and that is an awesome responsibility. More so, I think, given the drastic sort of situation the department has found itself in over the last couple of years. As an observer of City Hall, I've noticed that you and your department have had to do more with less, so much so that other departments get to charge you fees and other things, and we really need to remediate that. I know Mr. Labange and Mr. Krikorian have been working very much so on a remediation sort of process, a restoration process rather, to make you all whole and get you to the place that the city of Los Angeles deserves. So I'm excited about those conversations, and I will remind my colleagues of those when we get to the budget process. But the opportunity and the absolute need for your department, I think, is the future. How it is that we pivot these assets, these very, very valuable assets, in a way that really benefit residents to a place so that they've never had sort of the benefit that they had before. Separate and aside from having more open space, what you all are doing to revamp these facilities, these assets, is incredible. In my district, as a matter of example, we've got a park that is currently closed, but you're making it so that it's going to be incredibly efficient. And it's going to be a real demonstration of what it is to be drought tolerant and resistant. And as we are moving into a phase of more sustainability, more conservation, certainly we've all been doing that, but it's now at the sort of fore of our brains now. It's really important that we're successful, and I think it's even more important that we support you in that endeavor. And so I'm absolutely excited about the leadership that you have and the privilege, honestly, of the people that support you. This is a tremendous department. Good luck to you, and let us know how we can help.
Thank you, Councilman.
Guess what, Michael? No other speakers on the queue. Would you like for me to see if they really like you or if they were just saying that? So anyway, I congratulate you in advance. I think most people at Rec and Park know that. I love all of the city departments, but that's a special passion for me. So I congratulate you in advance. With that said, Madam Clerk, could you please open the roll? Close the roll. Tabulate.
15 ayes.
All right. Congratulations, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Clerk.
And, Mr. President, the annual salary for the Permanent General Manager, Recreation and Parks Department has been established at $228,636.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Let's take up items 22 and 28.
And, Mr. President, reports have been circulated for those matters.
So on those items, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
All right, let's move to item 1. Mr. Walsh, John Walsh, item 1. Mr. Walsh, please, no applause. Mr. Walsh. No applause, Mr. Herman. Go ahead, sir.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at this very minute the meeting at Hollywood Dems. Again, we have to thank Batman for alerting these public hearings concerning, this is item 1, appeals. If you get a lien in the mail, and it's usually send it to the wrong address. That happens all the time. Always come down here. You'll step to the side. You'll have a discussion with your city councilman. And invariably, all these liens, 2,000, 4,000, Margate Street, they are invariably reduced if you get up here and protest. If you just want to pay it, go ahead and do it. But the smart people get up here, and Batman helps them. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Mr. Walsh, we're going to item 29, and it's my understanding you have a card on item 29.
John Walsh at HollywoodHighlands.org. This concerns reappointment of Mr. Mitchell Harmatz to the Harbor Planning Commission. I don't see him up here, or maybe he's hiding somewhere. I don't see all this nauseating self-congratulation to Mr. Harmatz. But in any case, what we're seeing here is that Mr. Harmatz has been forced by the mayor to hand in as his resignation before he can take office, before he can be reappointed, stating, undated, if he votes any way except the way that Herb Wesson and the mayor want him to vote, they put the date on there, and Mr. Harmatz is 0. That didn't happen when we had a black mayor. You never heard me talking this way about the black mayor of the city. Never. I respected him. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on this issue. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, what were I know there's a couple of items scheduled for closed session that Mr. Krikorian indicates we can deal with in open session. So I'm going to defer to Mr. Krikorian. I thought you said 38, 39. I don't remember.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Items 38 and 39 are the Budget Committee's recommendations that we approve the settlement recommendation of the City Attorney, and both of those can be disposed of in open session unless members have questions or concerns. Items 40 and 41 are appropriately considered in closed session.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Clerk, don't you need to make an announcement?
Yes, sir. For item 38, in the case entitled Huntington El Sereno LLC versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $143,140 and 74 cents in settlement. And for item 39, in the case entitled Muriel White versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $925,000 in settlement.
Okay, I see no questions on those two items. Okay, so let's prepare to vote on those two items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Mr. Labange. Mr. Fuentes.
President, I'd like to move that we reconsider item number 3 from yesterday's council agenda, the Energy and Environment Report relative to amending the municipal code in connection with wastewater treatment program, Council File 14-0296. Once we reconsider it, I'd like to submit a revised committee report. There was a technical mistake.
Okay, so our first vote, Mr. Clerk, would be on reconsideration.
Yes, sir.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Mr. Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. President. The matter is now before us, colleagues. I'd like to move that we adopt the revised committee report on this matter in lieu of the committee report adopted yesterday. Ask for an aye vote.
And Mr. President, pardon me, that report has been circulated and distributed for all the members.
Thank you. So let's prepare to vote on that item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Item 35, called special by Mr. Weezer.
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, this item here is simply for informational purposes, but we thought it was of utmost importance to have the Planning Department not only make the presentation as they did in Plum Committee, but also to come before the full council and talk a little bit about where we are in reviewing the city's zoning code. As you know, the city has not looked at the zoning code comprehensively since 1946. And I would be assured to say that a lot has changed since 1946. And so with that, I wanted to thank our planning director, Michael LeGrand, Tom Rothman, and Eric Lopez from the Code Study section who will be presenting today. I also want to thank the Council President, Mr. Weston and Mr. Labange for allowing us to have this in Council today. And I also want to give a big thank you to my colleagues, Mr. Cedillo and Englander, who worked with us in Plum Committee to continue to revise and review this. Now, I will allow the Planning Department to make the presentation, but just a little background. In June of 2013, Council approved planning to undertake a thorough and comprehensive rewrite of LA's entire zoning code, which, like I said, hasn't been looked at since 1946. Since then, planning has hired a consultant, Code Studio, who has brought a zoning advisory committee and has completed a thorough audit of the zoning code. Throughout this, the Recode LA team, as it is now called, has been giving quarterly updates to the Plum Committee on the progress. My staff has been working closely with the Planning Department on the Recode LA and attending the Zoning Advisory Committee meetings. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Mr. LeGrand and his staff to give us a brief presentation on this. I believe there's a slideshow as well. Thank you.
Yeah, PowerPoint. Slideshows last century. PowerPoint.
I'm just showing my age, Mr. President. I'm just showing my age.
Go.
Is this in color or black and white?
Yeah,
Let's
it's
go.
color.
Okay.
Good afternoon, council members. Michael LeGrand, Director of Planning. We're very excited to be here today to present our preliminary work on looking at the existing zoning code that was in existence since 1946, with amendments approved by the council since that time, and trying to move into a more comprehensive, online, and user-friendly zoning code for Los Angeles. Last year, the Planning Department launched a complete rewrite of your city's zoning code. This is really the best way to dictate what the process is and the built environment will look like in LA for years to come. The entire project is scheduled to last 5 years. Among other things, will elevate urban design and the context that our planning process is engaged in. Today, we're here to present a roadmap for the project and our code evaluation, which evaluates the existing zoning code, what areas we want to attack, which ones we want to amend. It gives you a little flavor for what's to come and make sure that we're in the same direction as the council and the policymakers of the city, including the mayor. We're so excited to be here. I have Tom Rothman here who's going to go through the presentation and will be available for any questions. This is the very beginning of the process. We have a lot of public engagement. We have a chair from the community and a chair from the business sector in our Zoning Advisory Committee that represents all aspects and areas of the city of Los Angeles. We're very happy to have so much public input and so many hits on our webpage to see Angelinos involved in making Los Angeles a more livable city. Mr. Rothman.
Thanks, Mike. Tom Rothman from the Planning Department. So I want to
bring everybody's attention to the PowerPoint presentation on the screen. The far left pamphlet over there is our zoning code from 1946, and the far right document is our zoning code today. It's really the same type of document. It hasn't really changed much other than adding about 800 pages. So we've continuously amended our zoning code from 1946, doing patches and patches, but we've never comprehensively revised it for a modern city. So this is the time, that's what this project is about, to actually comprehensively revise our city's zoning code. Because our zoning code is outdated, we've been amending it in various ways, not just in the zoning code, but through countless memos from our chief zoning administrator, and also through footnotes and other types of qualifying conditions. So we have rules and regulations scattered throughout the city government. So we have this is just an image of our 7th floor where rules of our zoning code reside other than our actual book. And this is a really very telling slide. The numbers may not be as accurate as when we had originally done it, but the point we're getting across here is that most of the planning department is engaged in case processing other than long-term planning. So the slide shows that we have about a quarter of our department engaged in administrative work, and then about 15% engaged in long-range planning, whereas the remainder of our planners are doing case processes, doing variances and code amendments and other things. So what we want to do is really shift the focus to a long-range planning, and we think that revising our zoning code can help the city move in a direction where we focus more on long-range planning and less on short-term. And here's another really very important slide. This is obviously the city of LA, and the darkly shaded areas are areas of the city that are covered by not just our zoning code, but other things. Things you've heard of: supplemental use districts, specific plans, qualifying queue conditions that change the zoning on individual sites, and a variety of other mechanisms. So we have a citywide zoning code that doesn't cover most of the city. You've got to look in many other documents, and sometimes, and most often, they're very difficult to find. So we'd like to, in comprehensively revising the zoning code, put all of the zones into one place where you can figure out what your zone is, and you'll find all of your regulations in one place, as opposed to looking through other documents. And as Mike said, we're at the beginning of this 5-year project. We're actually finishing up year 1, and we've prepared a code evaluation report that says that gives us the roadmap for where we want to go. Great read. It's on our website, Recode LA. It talks about the features of a new zoning code. What we'd like to have in the next year is we're working closely with our downtown planners. They're working on 2 community plans in downtown, and we're having a very combined effort to not only provide the new tools for new zones in downtown, but also to have those implemented as part of the Central City and Central City North community plans. We're also working diligently on creating a web-enabled code so that the users of our zoning code can ask questions and find answers and scroll through it and figure out what is important to them, as opposed to leafing through over 800 pages of text. It's really very, very a big deal for the city. It's really a very helpful tool. And lastly, we're going to have a citywide zoning code. And this is a best practice image from another city that we really think is a very helpful and utilizable image, where all of the features of a particular zone can be found on one page. We have charts and graphs, things we don't really employ in our zoning code today. A really helpful tool, and we're really looking at this as a model for our new zoning code. Another reason we want to redo our zoning code is because we've been adding and amending the zoning code with different processes. We have over 75 individual processes, all very necessary and needed, but they kind of get at the same thing in a variety of ways. We'd like to synchronize as much as we can. We've got different dates for no reason, different appeal periods. We'd like to synchronize as much as we can. We feel like we can do that with this process. We looked the chart on the top right was our analysis of all of our over 70 processes, and we'd like to simplify it to something more similar to the lower chart. And where we are now with this code evaluation is we've done a considerable amount of public outreach over the last year in developing the code evaluation and in disseminating the code evaluation. So we have gone twice throughout the city in regional forums. We've set up the city in coterminous with our area planning commission areas, and we've held public outreach meetings open to the public in all different area planning commission areas, North Valley, South Valley. And we've also held virtual forums, 2 separate virtual forums for those who can't make it to a public outreach meeting. They can attend via the internet and ask us directly the questions that they think are important to them and speak. So if they can't make it out, it's a really helpful tool for those who can't make it. We have developed a really progressive website, recode.la. Everything we've been working on goes up on the website, keeps everybody informed. We've got a really great feature on there called Markup, where we've listed all of our documents. Specifically, the code evaluation is up there for review, and during the public outreach period for over 3 months, we let individual users log on and comment directly on the document, and we've incorporated most of those comments into an update of this code evaluation. Really great feature.
Well, I just want to thank you, and Mr. Huizar, if you want to close on this. I also think you get involved with the neighborhood council and the business community and the apartment house association, everybody. As long as we're doing it, let's get everybody in the same pool so that we can all come out refreshed and focused. So,
okay.
Mr. Huizar.
I'll close out, but are there any questions?
Mr. Blumenfield from the 3rd District.
Well, I'm very excited about the Recode LA. I just wish it could happen faster, but I understand sometimes you have to wait for good things to happen. In particular, I wanted to ask about in the interim period. You know, it's come up in my district, and I know you're familiar with, a couple of different instances where someone has a business, but because somebody complained and the business was there for 20 years, they're in a very difficult spot right now. And I have a feeling if we were able to wait for Recode LA, some of those problems would be solved because of the way that the likely would be zoned. Is there any way in this process to create a mechanism for these kind of situations in these interim years to have a stay of some sort so that we can deal with the problematic situations that can't be solved? And in some ways, from a resource perspective, you don't want to spend all your time solving all of these relatively small things, but they're big things when it comes to their people's livelihoods and a lot of business and homeowners depend on. So how do we deal with the interim situation like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think you're speaking of sometimes in Los Angeles, we have a lot of non-conforming uses that may be legally operating, and other times over the years they've fallen out of compliance just out of the natural progression of the city. We're happy to work with you to look at some interim solutions we can do. We've talked to the Apartment Owners Association. There's some motions that council has drafted about looking at different types of, for example, units that have been created in apartment buildings over the years, some creative ways to address them to be safe and inspected and up to quality of life standards, but also not evict the tenants who may have an affordable housing stock, so different ideas like that. We were looking at with the council, and we'll report back to you through those motions. In our budget also, we're going to propose having some staff set aside to deal with those more emergency issues that come up at council, so we don't have to wait for the zoning code update, but we'll have staff on board to be able to address those. In last year's budget, the council did approve our neighborhood conservation program that looks at a number of historic properties, putting overlays on those, as well as dealing with the mansionization issues we're seeing across the city. So we do have some capacity in those work programs to address some context issues in these neighborhoods, and we'll be coming back in our budget with some more resources to propose to council to be able to address those code features that need to be updated that maybe can't wait for 4 more years until we come back to council. So we're happy to work with your office to identify some of those and bring them back through the budget process.
Great. I very much look forward to that, and we'll take you up on that with the 2 particular ones I'm thinking of.
Great.
And then just more generally, the other great thing about this, which, and I know you're tapped into, is connecting this with the open data movement and the open data that we're moving as a city and that the mayor's been pushing, because even though this isn't the traditional data set, this really will go a long way to making LA more transparent and more effective. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fuentes of the 7th District.
Thank you, Mr. Labange, and thank you for this exercise. It's incredibly important, as you all know. I mean, the code, the zoning code, really is the DNA by which the city of Los Angeles grows, and historically, I think, is sort of why you've got some challenges in districts like 7, for example, where you don't have very good buffers between uses and that sort of thing. So the exercise, I think, is incredibly, incredibly important. And I'm excited that it's happening, like Mr. Blumenfield mentioned, but 5 years is a long time. So what are some of the benchmarks that we can expect to sort of see? I know it's difficult to release it in tranches, probably impossible, but what is it that we can start sort of effectively being able to use in the short term? As an example, I'm beginning to adopt sort of our land use policy around our proposed community plan so as to try to be consistent going forward. But from a code perspective, what is it that we can expect in the sort of next year or two in terms of milestones for the exercise? Great. And thank you, by the way, for doing it, because I know it's voluminous and it's disturbing to some, and I've only heard about some of the horrors in files that are out there and the reconciliation of those sort of uses. So thank you for your effort.
Thank you. Yeah, as you know, Los Angeles is a very large city, obviously, land mass and population-wise, and so many different neighborhoods make up the city. So the 5-year program we started last year, so really 4 more years, is pretty much what it takes for a large jurisdiction like this to get it right and do it. The first milestone that we're really going to see, besides this code evaluation report, is going to be the downtown zoning code. So we'll have an incubator to try out new zones, try out new ideas in our city center. We're seeing a major increase in the number of housing opportunities in downtown. But as you represent the valley, that doesn't give you too much comfort. So I'll let Tom talk about a little bit more about some of the milestones we have coming down technology-wise, also for the code evaluation report.
Okay, I'm not sure where the PowerPoint went. We're going to be coming to Plum and Council on a regular basis to brief you on our progress, but the intent is that the entire zoning code after the downtown code will be adopted all at once. So we're not going to be providing new tools up until the end of the full zoning code, but as Mike said, we do intend on having a downtown development code done by the next year, and then a web-based code that'll be enabled for downtown, and then a model for the rest of the city. However, there will not be any tools coming out until the end of the project.
One thing we have talked about with our consultants is setting up in all the council offices a way to test out the code, so we can show neighbors and your constituents and the business operators what the new zoning code would allow on this property and what the existing zoning code allows on the property, to give people a comfort level before it's implemented, and they'll be able to go to your field office and actually touch the code and see what it would do for these properties, so that we have that transparency you talk about and care about, but also a way for people to get comfortable with it and start to learn it before it's rolled out. So unfortunately, I think 4 years will be here before we know it, but we're happy to work with you on it, like, again, when we come back with a budget on any of those immediate issues like we've dealt with you on K districts, trying to preserve those in your neighborhoods, make sure that we can tackle those issues that can't wait for 4 years.
And so my last question, Mr. President, is, one comment. This process, I think, has been incredibly inclusive, which is really important because, again, the DNA of the city of Los Angeles, the participation that you're seeking from the community as to sort of what they want to see, I think is incredibly beneficial to all of us as policymakers. But at what point, and maybe Mr. Huizar can answer this, do the policy conversations begin about the future of Los Angeles? What it is that we want to see? I think about Council District 7 as an example that has historically been labeled Panorama City, the city of the future. And then you look at sort of areas like mine that back then were sort of slated to be more manufacturing and industrial in their nature. Understanding that Los Angeles has changed tremendously, prospectively, what it is that we're sort of planning or hoping to sort of incubate vis-a-vis this process. When do we begin those policy conversations? Clearly, we have a very able chair that can help us guide that, but at some point there must be a recommendation from you all to sort of help define what Los Angeles ought to be and should be and it could be vis-a-vis this exercise. So let us know when and how that works.
Definitely, and right now it's starting. It's the very beginning of it, so we're not too late. It's the good news. Something we've been talking to Councilman Huizar about is the possibility, if the council intends to, is to do an ad hoc committee to where the council can get more involved and make sure that the vision that we're creating matches where you want to see the city the next 20, 30, 50 years. And so we're happy to work with you on either an ad hoc committee or through the utilizing the Plum Committee to have those conversations in more depth with a little bit more time to where we can walk through those issues with you and explain to you what our thinking is and what the best practices are across the country and make sure they line up with the goals of your districts.
Let's not just go around the country, go around the world. And
Sounds
Mr.
good.
Weezar, let's get a working group of our planning deputies who are so experienced, as well as maybe an ad hoc. So I'm going to call on Mr. Price and then for you to close. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, really appreciate this Herculean effort in redoing the zoning and planning. I know there have been some challenges on the planning side. Those impacting the zoning efforts as they're going forward? Are there some legal issues that may hold this process up as well? And what's the interplay between the two, zoning and planning?
Well, one of the biggest problems we have with our planning process, with our updating of our community plans, is that we have limited tools in the zoning code for our community planners to use. So the main point of this project is to provide a broader amount of tools in our toolbox so that we get at the progressive ideas and the interesting ways to plan. We're going to be placing those in the toolbox. We're not going to be rezoning parts of the city outside of downtown with this project, but we're going to give our planners, the long-range planners, a better mechanisms to implement the visions that we have in our multitude of policy documents in the city. So we're working closely with our community planners so that we have what they need instead of them having to recreate different zones on an ad hoc basis. So that's really how we see the future of this planning process going.
Thank you.
Very good, Mr. Price. And before I call on Mr. Weezar, I just returned from a conference in Berlin where they're working on incubators. They want to meet with you. I know some of them coming out here for that. But to truly look at the zoning, and Mr. Weezar, you're on top of this so well citywide. Let me call on Mr. Weezar to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome back. We missed you, Tom. And Mr. LaBonge, when you said you're at Griffith Park and you looked east and you said you saw the sunrise, I thought you were going to say I saw CD14 when I looked east.
No.
It's all there. Thank you. A couple of questions just to get clear. What are the next steps on this so we could be clear?
Okay. The next step is we'll on the micro level, working on an approach report to how the actual zoning code will be developed and how it will appear. And then again, we're currently working with our downtown planners on Central City North, so that right now, they use the old book and they get the tools available to them to rezone downtown are what's in the zoning code today. We want to make sure that the new book, or whatever the zoning code is, has the appropriate tools so they can encourage and incentivize the types of land uses they want to see.
Great. And so we will continue to have quarterly reports in Plum, but I would encourage all the planning deputies in each office to listen in or keep an eye on this process, because at the end of the day, when this comes back to us for a final vote, it's going to really, as Mr. Fuentes aptly mentioned, it's going to set the DNA for the city and what happens in the city or not, and it's going to create the type of city we would like to see. Now, how, for the benefit of us all, what's the difference between the zoning code and the general plan of the city?
Okay. Well, those are the two big documents that guide planning in the city. So we have our general plan, which are policies and visions, and the zoning code has the regulations and the tools. So there's really not much theory going on in the zoning code. It's really the nuts and bolts. The general plan talks about housing, talks about transportation, talks about our health element.
And so right now we're also undergoing some reviews of the transportation element and adding a health element to something we had never seen in the city before. And at broader policy level, what we'd like to see in the zoning code is going to include some of those new, as we revise it, some of those new implementations and tools to implement those broad goals. I appreciate what the planning department's doing. It's incredible work. My one concern is, and we've got to look at this again for the next budget cycle, is our community plans. That after the general plan, we get more specific with the community plans. We got to renew more of those as we move forward. We're doing a tremendous job to look at the tools. We got general plan, which we're evaluating, adding new elements, but the community plans, I think we need to also think about how we move that into this broader direction that we're going to re-envision what we'd like the city to look like.
Yes, and we'll be happy to report back to you at the Plum Committee about some strategies we have to move the existing community plans forward and take on additional ones. And we've been working very closely with our city attorney's office, and we're actually helping them with resources to assist us in the review of the environmental documents for those community plans to be able to move them forward. So I know, for example, Councilman Englander at Plum always challenges me about when can we get that Granada Hills plan on the street. And so we're wading our way through some of those technical issues, but with the assistance of our city attorney, I feel like the future is very bright, and we're on the cusp of releasing a number of those plans have been stalled due to some legal challenges.
Yeah. And, you know, we could talk about basics in the city of LA, and different people define it in different ways. Getting our community plans up and going, to me, is a back-to-basic issue, because if we don't know where we're going as a city, where do we implement those basic things we'd like to see them, and where and how? So hopefully we could do
and we have
one of those
3 community plans right now currently going on in the 14th district, so we definitely heard you.
I'm looking out for the rest of my colleagues now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank you
Weezer,
very much.
Thank you very much. No other questions. We will just move this agenda on this report, right, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, sir. It's a presentation. No action is required.
Very good. Thank you. Next item, you had one item that we needed to vote on.
Item 26.
26 members, 26. We're going to vote on that item right now. There's no cards on that. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
15 ayes. Good. Next item.
Mr. President, at this time, would you like to reconsider the ordinances for 12 members?
Absolutely.
Those would be items 30, 31, 32, and 33.
For reconsideration, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
And, Mr. President, those matters are now before you.
Okay, let's open the roll on that, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
15 ayes. Thank you very much. Next item.
Mr. President, that brings us to item 34, called Special for Cards.
Mr. John Walsh, followed by Mr. Hunt.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, or go to J. Walsh Confidential, and tweeting at this very moment at Hollywood Dems. Again, this is the REAP program, and as you know, nothing annoys these people up here as much as when I compliment him. I don't get up here and say you're all a bunch of crooks and everything you do is wrong. I leave that to the crazy old white men, okay? You do an excellent job on REAP. You do an excellent job when they inspected my apartment and got the landlord to paint it. You do an excellent job on renters' issues. So that gives me the credibility to say when you do a terrible job. And I will on the public comment. I mean, on the general public comment. You're doing a great job on rents. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Mr. Hunt. Seeing no Mr. Hunt. Thank you. No, I don't see you. You're Mr. I don't know that. I don't know that is. I saw Mr. Hunt. Thank you very much. Fill out a card with your name on it. Fill out your card on the name next time. Okay? Speak right now. No. I want you to fill it out right. Speak right now.
I filled out my card under the name of Hunt because we are the people speaking about the citations and the corrections needed to improve our livelihoods when it comes to rent control. And I will praise those in this city who take the appropriate stance when it comes to renters and their livelihood. The quality of life in LA has been horrific due to the circumstance and the problems of those involved who are the slumlords like Council District 14 who do not provide the programs of REAP in District 14. But in as much as I will say and direct my attention about rent escrow, is that we have in CD 8, 607 West 7th Street, a case completed. CD 9, 5012 South McKinley Avenue. CD 15, West Anaheim Street. The list of these bias, and I'll use the term racist, when it comes to removing properties under REAP, in as much as it's the responsibility of the city and the city attorney to delegate the services needed, Mr. O'Connell, the services needed under Los Angeles Housing Community Investment Department so that people can live comfortably in Los Angeles. People can enjoy their rental places without the cucarachas, Dion, or the pest environments of those who cite people illegally and take the wrong action as Building and Safety has done in the past. We should do more investigations like this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That on this issue now, let's open the roll on this issue. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
15 ayes. Mr. Clerk, on the item 28, could we reconsider that? Mr. O'Farrell has an amendment.
Yes, sir.
Let's open the roll on reconsideration. Close the roll. All right. Matters before us,
15
right?
ayes.
Thank you, Julie. Mr. O'Farrell.
It's very important to our colleague Joe Buscaino that we get this right, and so he's been working very hard on the acquisition, the possible acquisition of the Wilmington Greenbelt Community Center property. So we need the record to reflect that in committee we requested that the department must report back to council prior to the acceptance of the property. You bet.
Okay. So that is an amendment that's accepted, Mr. Clerk? Mr.
Yes,
Clerk?
sir.
That's accepted.
Mr.
Seconded?
Buscaino.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing such, let's attach that.
We should vote on this matter, sir.
Yes, let's attach that. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
15 ayes. Thank you. Next item.
Mr. President, that brings us to item 2, called Special for Cards.
Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org for information. Number 2, again, this is a lien for unpaid taxes in the amount to Klaus Eltenberger, $43,000. Well, Eltenberger Corporation. If the person's not here, I guess they are stating, surrendering to you that they do owe the $43,541.76, and I hope you collect it. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Mr. Herman.
Did you mean Mr. Hunt as I filled out my card under the Brown Act? Come on.
Excuse me.
It's not disruptive.
Stop, Mr. Herman. Stop, Mr. Herman.
Speaker.
Stop, Mr. Herman.
The public speaker is causing confusion by placing someone else's name who's present in the building instead of his own. He should be requested to put his name or a different moniker down on the card so that the public comment process can be administered appropriately.
All right, so I'm calling Mr. Herman right now. Mr. Krikorian.
Instructed to address the item and not to argue with the chair. The rulings of the chair of this body are not within his interest to argue with during his public comment time. He can speak to this item and speak to this item only.
Thank you. Mr. Herman.
hearing protests relative to the Office of Finance to record liens against taxpayers for unpaid taxes. Recommendation from Council, the clause of Entenberger Corp., the lien of $43,541.76 was continued from council meeting of July 30th, 2014. Due to the unresolved issue of unpaid taxes, how does the city allow these amounts to go unnoticed and continue to reciprocate over and over and over? Los Angeles Angelinos, I'm on my knees to protest on behalf of this company, spelled ETENSBERGER Corp., that I'm on demand on my knees petitioning you to hold and give a due process for your illegal action, not to notify them by certified mail as you have done in the past with many of the other illegal liens that the city of Los Angeles has violated the rights of persons to due process and the provisions of measuring up to what your purpose and your measurement under the reasonableness that the citizens of Los Angeles demand clarity, transparency when it comes to the actions of your liens. How many times have you heard Mr. John Walsh, HollywoodHighland.org say to you, come here and protest your liens, and you will absolutely walk away with a resolved answer today, not later, alligator.
Okay, so that completes the cards. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
15 ayes. Mr. Clerk, next item.
That brings us to item 25, called special by Councilmember Englander for Councilmember Huizar.
25.
Yes, sir, 25.
Mr. Scholl is here.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Scholl's here. And Councilmember, I just wanted to mention a few new improvements that are going on at El Sereno. I wanted to particularly thank Mr. Scholl at this time, as the same day he's voted in as a new general manager, and thank him for the work he did here. You know, when a community is asking for something, it's oftentimes our job to go find the money. And in this case, the community of El Sereno at El Sereno Park had been asking for some improvements at El Sereno Park, bathrooms, maintenance, et cetera, for a very long time. We worked with Rec and Parks, and we got a $350,000 CDBG grant, and we then requested some money from the county through the city, who made the request for additional funding, and we made that possible. So, Mr. Scholl, I thought it'd just be appropriate, and the same day that you are being voted in, to show the type of work you've been doing, and the same day something else on the agenda. So thank you for your work, and this is something that the community has been asking for a very long time. So thank you, and I just wanted to acknowledge you once again.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilmember Huizar. That is much-needed money for El Sereno Park, so it was your office that really helped us get there. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. See no speakers on the queue. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
15 ayes, forthwith on that matter as well. Okay, next item.
Mr. President, that brings us to item 17, called special for Councilmember Buscaino.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this item before you is in response to a council budget instruction requesting the Bureau of Street Services report on the quality of contract tree trimming services versus that of city employees. What we're dealing with, colleagues, is a fundamental question of government. When is the public best served by using city employees and providing the service directly, and when is the public best served by contracting out for that service? And there are pros and cons for each, as we've discussed in our committee. Tree trimming by city forces is, by the Bureau's own admission, a little more expensive. However, they can be deployed more quickly and allow for more flexibility, and the quality of work is incredible. It's excellent. Though contract tree trimming may be cheaper, there is not much flexibility, and the quality of work is often less than par. And I don't believe that the answer is one size fits all. There's value in having a hybrid system that utilizes both city and contract forces. But in order for us as a council to make informed decisions about the level of funding for each program, we need accurate data and better metrics. Simply tracking the number of trees trimmed doesn't account for variables like the size of the tree, mobilization time, and special circumstances. And it's difficult to compare the true cost of each program without a clear picture of how the CAO calculates the indirect costs associated with using city employees and without factoring in the indirect costs of contracting incurred by the Bureau of Public Works, Contract Administration, and the city attorney. Since we're already over a month into the current fiscal year, it's not possible to drastically change course this year and hire more arborists, those who trim trees, that is, and tree surgeons, even if we want to do it. It takes time to hire. The best we can do is provide additional funding for overtime using existing Urban Forestry Division employees. Your Public Works Committee is recommending the Council provide the Bureau of Street Services with $500,000 for overtime funding this fiscal year for as-needed, on-demand tree trimming, divided evenly within our respective council districts, which accounts for over $33,000 for each council district, and to provide the Bureau of Street Services with $3.5 million in this current fiscal year to fund contract tree trimming citywide. We're also asking the CAO to report with recommendations for establishing new, more accurate metrics, as well as an analysis of the true direct and indirect costs of tree trimming by city forces and tree trimming by contract. We're also asking the CAO to report on what actions would be necessary to provide an equal allocation for each program next fiscal year should the Mayor, Budget and Finance Committee, and Council choose to do so. I'm also asking in respect to Mr. Krikorian's committee that we send this to Mr. Krikorian's Budget and Finance Committee for review since this is a financial transfer, which I was told you'll hear it on Monday. So with that, we can move forward, but we'll ask the Budget and Finance Committee to review this before we move forward. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, we'll refer it to the Budget and
But
Finance.
I want Mr. Krikorian for the powerful Budget Committee who pushed his button to address the issue.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. LaBonge, and thank you, Mr. Buscaino. I just wanted to, first of all, thank Mr. Buscaino and the Public Works Committee for moving the ball forward on something that's very important to every corner of the city, enhancing our tree trimming capacity and ensuring not only the public safety that comes from that, but also the reducing the adverse impacts on our other infrastructure, like sidewalks and other things that come when we fail to maintain our trees. So I'm looking forward to hearing this matter in Budget and Finance. Thank Mr. Buscaino for that request for referral, and we'll take this up on Monday.
And thank Ron Lorenzen right here for this great work of the team of Street Tree. Seeing that, it's been referred. No vote on that, right, Mr. Clerk?
No, sir, if you do it without objection.
Without objection, so ordered. Next item.
That brings us to item 18.
18,
special.
Mr. Buscaino, I know you called it special. I know you have some people here.
Thank you,
did
Mr.
have
President.
a hearing in committee.
We finally have arrived to this. We heard this in committee. We also fulfilled the public comment in committee. This item before you will ultimately approve the temporary closure of 121st Street between Figueroa and Hoover Street for our Athens on the Hill community. And if I can just recognize, since we already fulfilled the public comment in committee, recognize Clarence Johnson, who's here, Alvin Lepostri, who's here, Hannah Woods, who's here, Llewellyn Falcus, who's here, Lou Watson. Thanks, Lou, for being here, and Elaine Simpson as well. And if I can have Edmund Yu come to the table, and just for clarification for our community members, this has been a request for many, many years, even prior to my arrival with then Councilwoman Janice Hahn. We've come to this opportunity where we can be responsive to the quality of life issues facing Athens on the Hill's residents and just share with us the action that we're taking here We're doing our part, but we need some information from the community members who are seeking this request, right?
Good morning, council members. Edmund Yu, Bureau of Engineering. On this type of street closure, the City Council, what your action now is to authorize the closing of the public street, but the next step is for the community members, the constituents to retain someone to handle the design of the gate and go through and the permit process within the city and actually install the gate. That will be the next step for under this kind of action.
And what's the timeline? How soon do they need to get that information over to you?
The City Council policy is that the actual closing of the gates should happen within 6 months of this council action. So they should be working on this for the next 6 months.
Very good. So we'll work hand in hand with the residents. And I want to, again, thank Athens on the Hill for being here, and thank Edmund for clarifying that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
15 ayes. Thank you. All right, let's go. All right, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, sir.
Before we go into executive session, we have a lot of public comment cards. I'm going to ask for public comment, general public comment now. Ask for 1 minute public comment. So then we will go into executive session. Okay?
Very good, sir.
All right, thank you for public comment. Okay. Robert Lucas. Robert Lucas, 1 minute. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Lucas. I brought copies for all of the council people of this nonprofit. Real quick, I need to make you guys aware of the Central LAPD and some of the work that's going on. I witnessed one of the most humanitarian acts by an LAPD officer enacting with a mentally ill person that I've ever experienced in my life. It was truly moving. Mr. Weezar's scheduled a town hall type meeting questioning the homelessness. I think it's September 29th. I'd really like to be a part of that. One other thing, some of the constituents and residents of LA County have stepped up with some very valuable resources to me that I'm not able to secure or handle, so please be patient with me. I'm doing everything that I can to make this happen. You guys have a great afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Richard Garnett Jr. Richard Garnett Jr. Richard Garnett Jr. Kenneth Jenkins. Richard Garnett coming up? All right, Richard's first. I didn't see you. Thank you.
This is my first time here. I just wonder, what's the rules of this?
Well, stop the clock real quick. Mr. City Attorney, tell him.
I really didn't understand.
Public comment, what's the rules? The rules is to tell your city council what you feel you want to express about the city of Los Angeles and its functions.
Fair. He could speak about items that are not on the agenda if they're within the jurisdiction of this city council.
Right. Okay.
Well, I don't have a vast knowledge of the city. I am more acquainted with Venice Beach. And right now, I feel at this time that we have did a lot of projects in the past, like a zip line. But right now, we have lost a lot of clientele because we have forgotten how to advertise to our people. I just want to put on record in the past, they didn't make up any laws for a bar where they distribute alcohol. But even right now today, if you go outside of a bar, intoxicated, that's illegal, isn't it? Well, my point is that even though we have allowed people to smoke in this state, we still don't have a place for them to smoke at. That's all.
Kenneth Jenkins, please. Kenneth Jenkins.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President. I'm one of the Venice Beach vendors out that vend daily at Venice Beach. And the Ordinance 4215 has continued, to be a problem for us who are artists there, who are, trying to work, who consistently on a daily basis are being harassed by the cops. I am a permit holder, a seller's permit holder, and I was actually told that I could not vend my photography that I have there on the beach, which is actually a part of the ordinance. And I had officers that actually told me that I could not vend my photography there. So I'm asking, being that this ordinance was revised, can I vend my own photography that I've created on the Venice Beach Boardwalk, because the ordinance states that I can do that. And I was given a ticket in regards to that.
Thank you very much for your comment. Carl Williams.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a vendor of Venice Beach, California, and they, year in, year out, they come up with this new ordinance trying to stop us from making an honest living. And we just there, as vendor, we get the right by the state of California to be there. But every year they come up with an ordinance, you know, including the store owners and the police. They always keep on harassing us for no reason, to tell us we can't display our items for no just reason. And we're tired of the harassment and would like for you all as the, you know, the heads of the city of LA to come up with some form of way to stop this new ordinance year in, year out, and being harassed by the police for no reason. We're not committing crime. People on the beach committing crime, here, using drugs, selling drugs.
All right, thank you very much. Olga Hall. Olga.
Good morning. These are my own words. You and your predecessors have played a big role in supporting the nefarious actions of the Autry. You have allowed them to take control of $1 billion collection of Native American artifacts. By doing so, you are the cohorts in the destruction of one of the icons of this city. The excuse from Mayor Garcetti that this is an issue that is between private entities is just the way to use the language to confuse or deceive the public, which most of them are not informed of the true nature of this issue. From the birth of the Autry Museum, this city has been involved. Your Board of Referred Powers in 1985 gave the Autry 10 acres of prime land in Griffith Park for $1 a year with a lease of 50 years. You have given them so far almost $15 million. That land is worth $100,000 a year. The Autry has lied from the very beginning.
Thank you very much,
and it
Olga.
continues to do so.
Bernardo Nelson. Bernardo Nelson.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I've been on Venice Beach for 30 years. I've been selling incense for over on Venice Beach for about approximately 20 years. And it's gotten to the point where everybody, you people go behind closed doors and flip the script. First, you got to be a lottery system, then not a lottery system. Then you got to be religion, not religion. You got to be political. You keep going back and forth. And I've been watching you guys constantly flipping the script behind closed doors, not giving us a chance to make a living out there. God has put each and every one of you accountable for doing the right thing. Why don't you do the right thing? You're educated, you're supposed to be intelligent, and you're supposed to be in a place where God has anointed you and placed you. But yet you take that anointing and that gift that he's given you and go against people who are trying to make an honest living, and it's not right. You didn't put yourself there. The people didn't put yourself there. God put you there, right where you are. And probably most of you didn't probably say thank you this morning to your Heavenly Father. Give us a break. Let us earn a living, and let us get on with our lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we thank him every day. Daystar, please. Daystar.
Okay. Nicole Vandal could not come today. She sends her greetings. As the Schroep is still here, she asked me to read this message to you. Global police state stand down means a restoration of authentic authority on all levels of government committed to a resolution of our problems without weapons or violence. It is no longer okay to use the streets of LA to train and improve the way we are violent globally. The federal money should be returned to the training maneuvers canceled. It is not possible this time. If that's not possible this time, the monies received should be used to put cameras on every police officer on duty, no matter their rank, given the conditions of our global condition. Such should be done forthright. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Henry Marine.
Yes, as you know, MOUs are government documents that show how much money others use for the benefit of Hackley and Kohler employees. And we know how much money the members of the Hackley Board and the City Council sheltered from the pay of each Hackley and Kohler craftsman and failed to account for yet. Now, what y'all don't understand about trust. If you take somebody's money, you are trusted to account for it. And you are trusted to provide interest for that money. And you've been sheltering money for 22 years and came up with a penny of interest on behalf of we the people in L.A., and you haven't accounted for the principal you took in the first place. Now, don't you know Martin Ludlow went to jail for that same stupid shit? You're supposed to learn stuff from your predecessors and our chosen people. Now, don't keep making the same stupid-ass mistakes.
Jackson Flores is the next speaker. Jackson Flores. Jackson Flores of Los Angeles. Here, come. No, you can just speak 1 minute right here. That's all you can do. No, you have 1 minute comment, please. Thank you.
For the record, I am the Alpha and the Omega, which is Lord of Lords and King of Kings in human flesh. This city is under a state of emergency. I've come within 24-hour notice for 12 midnight to 12 midnight tomorrow. Warning has been given, and it has been ignored by District 14, where I reside and I live as a resident, as a community activist and civil rights leader for Los Angeles, California, and the voice and the trumpet call of God. So sound the alarm, sound the seventh last final trumpet, because this city is under judgment as of Judgment Day tomorrow. Vengeance belongs to the Lord always. As a First Lady President of the United States and all authority of us as a world leader in the city of Los Angeles, the Antichrist evil city who has crucified me, a flesh, the blood sacrifice, I will no longer tolerate my blood sacrifice.
Beavis Encabia. Sorry, Beavis, please correct me. Give it to the sergeant. Thank you, Beavis.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Beavis Igbinoba. Pronounce it very good and clearly. I'm a vendor in Venice Beach. Just like I can say to you, Mr. President, you were there yesterday when I was here addressing the audience, because we're tired of Los Angeles police harassing us on Venice Beach. And moreover, when you say to go and look for a job, you can't get a job, or they're going to tell you you have to be bilingual. Then the question I'm really asking, Mr. President, why did Latinos can do anything in Venice Beach, but we, Africa, America, we are rejected? Thank you, Mr. President.
Beavis, thank you. John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Item 39, almost $1 million you're awarding because of a burst sewer pipe. $1 million in damage to one person. 500 free tickets to the Jay-Z concert given to the mayor. Herb only got 10, and you lowlight lowlies down here only got 4. Many of your staff sold those tickets for profit. That's a crime. The feds raided the fashion district yesterday. The LAPD sat around with their finger up their ass. This is for counterfeit clothing and money laundering. The jurisdiction you had, I have to condemn, and Hamas. Remember, what is the jurisdiction here? You put an agenda item on here to condemn Hamas. 5,000 miles. The jurisdiction here is the entire city.
All right, Mr. City Attorney, note this here. I have Michael Hunt. That's the last cards. I have 2 cards. Michael Hunt. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you guys for calling me. I want to know what city council shits on a federal judge. Susan Siegel said that you can display anything on Venice Boardwalk. Now the African Americans can't display anything on the boardwalk. What city council shits on a federal judge? I think you guys ought to be ashamed of yourself. I think you guys spent 10 years, $7.5 million, and you guys are up. You guys are doing it again. This is what this whole T-shirt is about. There's niggers in every race. And this is what the fuck white niggers T-shirt mean, is that there's niggers in every race. Anybody that shits on a federal judge should be ashamed of themselves. Susan Siegel's a beautiful lady.
That completes our public comment. Mr. Herman, we do not have a card from you. No, your name is not on there. It's Mr. Herman. Sergeant, ask the gentleman to sit down. You got to fill your name out, Mr. Herman. Thank you. That completes public comment. Members, we thank the public for their comment. Mr. Clerk, we have some closed session issues.
Yes, sir. Items 40 and 41.
So let's thank the public. If you're not in the closed session.
Mr. LaBonge?
Yes.
Mr. LaBonge?
Yes.
Before we begin closed session, if I may just make an announcement. Members, all of us draw inspiration from the young people of our city who are committed to making a positive difference for Los Angeles, and so many of us have benefited from the service of many such young people. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the great work that I've had and the constituents of the 2nd Council District have had from 4 interns who have served in the office of CD2 in recent months. 2 of them are with us here today, Kevork Kordoglian and Mina Safarian. And I also, in my district office, had the services of Nancy Haldia and Kyle Sears. And just to show how open-minded we are in Council District 2, Kevork is a Republican junior at UCLA, and Mina is a Democratic junior at USC. Kevork is studying political science and hopes to pursue a career in public service. He was instrumental in helping us with parks funding issues, transportation policy issues, expanding the opportunity for more murals in the San Fernando Valley, and economic development issues. And Mina helped us a great deal with our communication and empowering our constituents with information, preparing presentations to the council, and very importantly to me, helping to develop best practices in our crusade against graffiti in the San Fernando Valley. Nancy, who couldn't be with us today, is a senior at Crescenta Valley High School, and Kyle is a sophomore history major at Lewis and Clark College in Portland. They've all been providing tremendous service to the people of my district, and I just want to take a moment to recognize their work and present this certificate to Mina and also to Kevork. And to thank them and congratulate them for their service.
Thank you, Mr. Krikoria. Thank you, all of our interns, but especially those in the 2nd and other districts. Great job. It's a very special. Mr. Clerk, what's before us now?
Items 40 and 41, sir. There are matters scheduled for closed session.
Closed session. Sergeant, and with the assistance of Detective Sergeant Edo, please clear the chambers. Thank you for those.
We're back in open session. Mr. Clerk, if we could go through the business that we still have to do.
Very good, sir. For item 40, there's no action is required of council at this time. And for item 41, we have in the case entitled Edward Jones versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $725,000 in settlement.
All right, so let's vote on that item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes, 1 no.
Okay, what business is still before this body?
Mr. President, council has motions for posting and referral.
They are posted and referred. That brings us where?
The desk is clear.
Thank you. Announcements, members, announcements. Mr. Cedillo.
Members, yesterday I spoke a little prematurely. I told you about Mario Beltran and their departure at 1 in the morning to Kaiser to have a child. The child was not born until yesterday late afternoon, but Mario Beltran and his wife Erika now have a newborn child named Camilo Ernesto Beltran. And I just think it's great to celebrate the birth of a new...
Yes, it is.
New young, great couple. And no doubt a new public servant will emerge from that family.
Well, that's good for us.
Yes.
If we could all rise. Mr. Krikorian.
Very much, Mr. President. Members, as you all know, tomorrow is September 11th. I'm sure there will be a variety of September 11th commemoration events throughout the city. One that the city will be hosting will be at the Frank Hotchkin Memorial Training Center. It's the annual fire department commemoration of remembrance of 9/11. In addition, at North Hollywood Park, from 6:30 to 7:30, we'll be having a 9/11 remembrance event at the grove of trees that were planted in remembrance of the victims of 9/11 in North Hollywood Park as well. That's 6:30 to 7:30 tomorrow evening.
Thank you. Members, any other announcements? Adjourning motions. Mr. Cedillo?
Yes, with deep regret and sadness, the Reverend Rene Ledesma passed away Monday, September 1st, 2014. Mr. Ledesma was former Assistant General Secretary of the General Board of Global Ministries of the United Methodist Church, pastor of many United Methodist congregations here in the Los Angeles area, and a retired LAUSD middle school teacher. Longtime social justice advocate over on the east side, northeast side. Reverend Ledesma had marched for the rights of farm workers, advocated for restorative justice, as executive director of the Plaza Community Center in East Los Angeles, was a strong proponent of marriage equality and civil rights for the LGBT community. He served as a member of Project Faith Community Advisory Board for the Wallace Memorials, a project that we've all supported, a icon of the Northeast Los Angeles. He's survived by his wife, 5 children, 4 grandchildren, and a large extended family who all give thanks for his life and his witness.
Thank you. Any other adjourning motions, Mr. Koretz?
Adjourn in memory of Kurt Meyer, who passed away on August 18th at the age of 92, and who was a notable architect who was very involved in historic preservation. Back in the 1960s in my old hometown of West Hollywood, he heroically led the charge to try and save the legendary Dodge House, which appeared to be saved and had a proposal agreed to with developers, but then the developer of that property suddenly demolished it one day. I think this helped lead him to be greatly involved in the creation of the Los Angeles Conservancy. He took part in their first news conference way back when, served on their first advisory council. And he was a well-respected architect. He designed a number of commercial buildings in LA noted for their mid-century style. Among his most acclaimed buildings are a 1960s bank building at Sunset and Crescent Heights that sports a zigzag accordion-like set of folds in its roof, a bank at South Beverly Drive in Pico that epitomized a style that has been called the New Brutalism, with giant columns. But whatever style he worked with, he was known for the fine quality of his designs. Many of us have been to the South Coast Air Quality Management District building in Diamond Bar. That was one of his as well. He was also very involved with several civic organizations. He was appointed by Mayor Bradley to the Community Redevelopment Agency and chaired it from 1976 to 1978 when the agency participated in several low-income housing projects. In 1992, he sold his firm so he might pursue his lifelong interest in the Himalayas. And though he spent most of the rest of his time in Nepal, he kept Los Angeles as his home base. He's survived by his wife, Pamela, sons Suzanne, sons Randy and Rick, 3 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren.
Thank you. Seeing no other adjourning motions, this meeting is adjourned.